Hello everyone, Juxtaposition here. Today's video will be entitled Predictive Programming. Alright, so predictive programming is a objective and a integral part of what I would refer to as the anthropology program. And when I refer to anthropology, which is the study of peoples and societies and how humans form into groups and exist on this planet Earth, I'm referring to banker planned, managed, and funded anthropology. In other words, the only kind of anthropology that's relevant on my channels is bank approved, bank supervised, and bank sponsored / funded anthropology. Because the other kind of anthropologies that might exist amongst hobbyists or college students that are very naive and haven't gone out in the real world and built a career is that that's just like watching NFL football or the Super Bowl or the NBA Finals or the Tour de France. It's entertainment. It's poppycock. It has no effect on the greater society. Okay, the only thing that affects the greater society are things that the bank approves, that the bank agrees with, and that the bank funds. And when I say the bank, I mean our money system. And our money system, which is the controllers of our society, has instituted what I would call a full spectrum dominance approach. It's very militarized. And we live in a military society. We live under maritime or admiralty law. In other words, the captain is in charge. His officers carry out his orders. We have an oath of obedience. We follow orders or people die. You either get thrown overboard, hung from the yardarm as an example to your fellow crew members to not commit mutiny, put in the brig, or perhaps just reprimanded and sent back to your laundry room assignment. That's the world. And you have no rights. There is no constitution, no Bill of Rights. There's no due process within the maritime law system. There are no courts that are observing constitutional law because there's no constitution. There are courts and they follow procedures. Procedures is applied linguistics for maritime authority law where matters are decided in private, either in the parking lot, in the judge's chambers, in the men's room, or perhaps at a country club. But they're definitely not decided in a courtroom. That's just for the stenographer to record the planned outcome, which is known by everybody except the defendants or the parties to the lawsuit, who are fleeced. Anyway, that's our system. And I know people have a hard time with that because they think we live in a democracy because you were told that as a child in school. It was drilled into your head as long as you're alive. You are getting predictive programming that we have a constitution and you have a duty to vote if you want to be a good citizen. This is, of course, ludicrous because voting is insane when your choices are paper or plastic, aisle or window, smoking or non-smoking, face diaper, no face diaper. That's it. You don't get to decide. You don't decide military expenditures. You don't decide how many submarines or aircraft carriers are built. You don't decide how many spy satellites or communication satellites are put up in orbit. You are not allowed to discuss 5G towers or the transponders on your light posts. That is not on a ballot. So look, those are really important decisions. You don't get to decide our banking system. You don't get to decide our banking audits or policies or disclosures, which there are no disclosures and there are no audits. I would know. I was an auditor for the world's largest bank, and it is not an audit. It's a fake audit. It's as fake as Joe Biden is a fake president. It's as fake as Ron DeSantis is a fake governor. Bank audits are the same. Bank audits are to the banking system what Ron DeSantis is to the people of Florida. Fake. It's the same program that Arnold Schwarzenegger was to the state of California. Fake, on steroids. Same as Gavin Newsom. Fake, dyslexic, probably can't write a complete sentence. Fake governor. Ronald Reagan, fake governor. Ronald Reagan, spy for Screen Actors Guild, CIA, OSS Hollywood. Well, it was CIA Hollywood when Ronald Reagan served 6.5 terms as Screen Actors Guild spy. And then he became a fake governor of California, then became a fake president of the United States, where Ronald Reagan had zero authority over anything. Anyway, the bank anthropologists have constructed a meta-universe, also known as the Matrix, of mendacities, lies, and false narratives. And they give it to you from all three-dimensional directions, above, below, to the side, horizontally, vertically. Every direction they are coming at you through Hollywood music, Hollywood films, Hollywood television, Hollywood fake documentaries, Hollywood fake witnesses, crisis actors, good actors, bad actors, professionally trained actors, non-trained actors. They are coming with you from every direction. The banking system is a money, credit, obedience score system. If you haven't already noticed, it's been that way for decades. It's not new. For example, if you want to go buy a car, you have to have a good credit score to get a loan or to get a lease. You must have a good credit score. If you don't, it'll be more expensive or you'll be declined the purchase. It'll be declined, right? And that means you can't leave your smart grid zip code, right? Well, just because they want to go to digital passports and QR codes and injectable identification and pull your DNA out of your nose and your brain with a PCR test, which is what that is, put that in a database so that you can be recognized from a 5G radio frequency system, that you can be recognized through your DNA. They can know if you're sleeping in your bed or if you're sleeping in someone else's bed. And then they can know to zap you or not zap you, with or without your cell phone. With or without your cell phone. In other words, if they have your DNA in the database, and they can mine the database and confirm your identity, they don't need you to be vaccinated, and they don't need you to carry your cell phone. They know where you are. They're tracking you through GPS, through DNA verification. Or they're also rolling out, as you know, with the artificial intelligence and the life sciences and the microbiology and the integration with nanotechnology and all of the secret cameras, we're going to facial recognition. So that's another way they can identify you. Your vax status, your DNA, okay? Your tax returns, your bank accounts, your facial recognition characteristics, your voice recognition. They can have a dozen ways to verify your identity and GPS track you throughout the world, which means you have no privacy because you can never get away from it. You can't get away from the system, which the bank anthropologists constructed, because they have first rights to the fake credit money that they invent out of thin air. And look, people, I was an auditor for the world's largest banks, okay? So I'm here to tell you, not my opinion. There is no banking system that's based on collateral or based on legitimacy. It's a psychops. It's a psychological religious cult that if you believe in your bank and you believe in digital credit scores that appear on your bank statements, then it's a valid system. Just like the Wizard of Oz was valid with the Moloch head and the flames coming out the nostrils and the flying Sacred Heart nuns flying around on broomsticks along with the flying monkeys. If you believe in that fear porn and follow the yellow brick road, which is the so-called gold standard, which we're not on, we are not on any kind of a standard. We're on the do whatever you want standard that the banks decide. It's a credit score system, and the bank decides which privileges that you have. Because if you have a high credit score, then you have more privileges than a person with a low credit score. That's our current system. That's not going to change. They're probably going to ratchet it tighter. But we've always had a money credit score system. It's always based on your privilege and your score. We've always had that. You have the easy life and the hard life. All right, bank anthropologists, of course, start out with, they did organized religion. They worked with applied linguistics, which is the Noam Chomsky school of how to bamboozle you. Then you create a cult around the religion. You create a cult following around the Noam Chomsky, like all the professors and the students that worship at the altar of the Yiddish Noam Chomsky, Avron Chomsky. His name is Avron, but he goes by Noam. Avron Noam Chomsky. So all the supporters of Noam Chomsky, they're essentially like in a Lance Armstrong, live strong, live wrong cult, because they're all living wrong and they all worship him, and they're not really thinking about what his purpose, his true purpose is, right? Which is to get you to vote, to participate, and to vote Democrat. I mean, it doesn't matter if you vote Republican, Democrat, or Libertarian. It doesn't matter because your vote doesn't matter. Because anyone you vote for has no power or authority to carry out any of your wishes or dreams. So I would recommend you don't vote, because when you vote, you're saying you agree with a system that doesn't represent you, that you agree with that. And I think people who vote capitulate. They're cowards. They just cave. They crack. They don't want to damage their credit score system by being considered a bad citizen. You're not a citizen, you're a slave. You're a slave. And I would suggest that you be as disobedient as possible. So we had organized religion, we have applied linguistics where we are ambiguous and we make harsh criminal activities sound ambiguous, or that you should forgive and forget. I think that was born out of religion, right? That you forgive and forget. That you forget about the crimes that your bank anthropologist committed upon you, or the murders of your family, that you forget about your family and you forgive your murderers. I don't think so. I don't think that makes for a functional society. I think that makes for a dysfunctional society. That's called prisoner dilemma game 101, Stockholm syndrome, where the victim falls in love with the criminal, with the jailer, right? The prisoner has a relationship with the jailer. That's called Stockholm syndrome. They tried to pull that with the Patricia Hearst scandal, except she never was kidnapped in the first place. So you can't have Stockholm syndrome with a cohort that's involved in a CIA psychops. And you're living at 1235 Masonic Avenue. I'm sorry, there's no Stockholm syndrome going on Masonic Avenue. There's only Masonic crimes committed on that boulevard. All right, that avenue. Then they went after the education indoctrination system. So you've got all your children, elementary school, in the primary and secondary, and then into the colleges, the community colleges, the state colleges, and the universities, public and private, all follow the same textbook policies. They follow the same academic scholastic standards. They issue grades. They give you an obedience credit score system to get an A or a B. And the professors are all indoctrinated. They're on a tenure program, meaning that they have to obey the dogma that they're taught. They're rinse and repeating what they were taught as students, and then they become academics. But they haven't really been out and learned anything about how the world works. Pretty scary. You've got the blind leading the deaf. Listen and obey. A system based completely on a false narrative, detached from reality. That's our educational system, which is an indoctrination system, on purpose, deliberately. Then within the college system, of course, you have research labs, which the banks fund through government grants. But as we know, the government doesn't exist. It's insolvent. So it's the banks that are funding the microbiology programs, the nano programs, the meta data mining programs, database software engineering. That's all funded by banks. Oracle wasn't created by Larry Ellison. Oracle wasn't created by Oracle. It was created by oh, who was the company that created it? It was across the street. Ampex Corporation was hired by the CIA to create a database to collect information. Ampex Corporation created a database which the CIA named Oracle. Then Larry Ellison was assigned to that program as an Ampex employee. And someone tapped him on the shoulder at around age 27 and said, hey boy, why don't you go across the street and open up an office, which eventually we'll call Oracle Software. But initially it wasn't Oracle. It was some other name, and then it was a different name, and then it was Oracle. It's like Oracle was the third name when the CIA gave them their name. It's a CIA name, Oracle, which means that you're all-knowing, which means that they've collected all the information and put it in the database, and to the extent that the CIA handlers can mine the database, they will have a meta-universe of information of predictive programming. And if people can predict your next move, they can control you very easily because they can mimic you. They can run you around, like a Pavlov's dog. They can have you bark on command for a treat, or they can give you an electric shock treatment if you disobey. Does this make sense with the 5G smart grid neighborhoods, right? That's like form of electroshock treatment capability. So we have database, we have software engineering, we have meta-universe predictive programming simulations, we have database mining, we have your perception becoming your reality. Your perception of reality becomes your world, not reality. I've proven that in the park when we have chemtrail dumpings and I point to the sky and the person looks at me, not at the sky. I said, we have a military plane that's dumping pollution over our city. Will you look? And they ask, well, why? Why would they do that? I said, well, a better question would be, why don't you look to see if they're doing it? I mean, that I'm not pulling your leg, right? It's like if I pointed and said, there's a truck coming at 90 miles an hour, get out of the way, and then you stand in the middle of the street and ask me, well, why would the truck run me over? Okay, well, now you're dead because you've just wasted the 3 or 4 seconds that I gave you, and now you're dead. So now we don't have to have a conversation about your life. Maybe they're trying to kill you, right? Or maybe they're not, but why don't you go stand on the sidewalk like a person with self-respect and look up to see if I'm a truthful person or not? But they don't, because they're zombies, because the predictive programming is to never disobey what you were told on television. Then, if that isn't enough, we got the pharmaceutical industry with Sandoz, which is Novartis, which is the Cetus Corporation, Chiron, Bayer, Sandoz, which makes LSD. They all were are now part of Novartis in Switzerland. Anyway, we have LSD and we have electroshock treatments. In case the other indoctrination didn't work, we got that. And then, of course, we have NATO forces. And we all know by watching my videos, they are armed with M16 rifles attached to the M7 bayonet, right? And people, by the way, they have an M9, which adds 2 inches. Adds 2 inches. This is 7-inch, and the M9 is 9-inch. So adds 2 inches to this. This will kill you, okay? And it'll go right through ribs. And it doesn't matter if you hit a rib, it'll still go through. It's 22 millimeters wide, and whether you put it in at an angle or straight on or perpendicular makes no difference. It's going in. Buck knife's not. Buck knife's going to get hung up, and the buck knife is only sharp on the bottom. It's dull on the top. It's 28 millimeters wide, 6 millimeters wide or so. Not going to go through ribs unless you get lucky and go through sideways. But then you're relying on luck, and when your victim's moving around, my experience is luck doesn't get the job done. Proper planning does. Use the right tool for the right job, you get the right result. Over here, you get a mess. All right, so that was my video today. I just want to point out that I believe that the money system controllers, which in this vernacular, I'll just say bankers, the banking system, the people that push the buttons at the top, they're at the top of the food chain because they decide what programs the military is going to follow. And of course, military intelligence being on the same plane as military. They boss the military around. And the bankers boss military intelligence around. And I prefer to use the word military intelligence because CIA or KGB are sort of confusing. because they're not really in charge. The military's in charge. The military's in charge. The CIA really conducts, psychological programs using Hollywood and using people like, Timothy Leary, Dr. Albert Laverne in Yonkers and the Bronx, in Manhattan, and in sanitariums, and at Fordham University, and Bellevue State Hospital, and then Louis Jolyon West and Haight-Ashbury, and at UCLA as the department head of psychology. And of course, he was also department head of psychology at University of Oklahoma, and he killed the 3,000-pound elephant at the Oklahoma City Zoo. And before that, he was at Laughlin Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas, performing crimes, God knows what types. And we have Bill Graham, who promoted the free concerts as a honeypot. We had Sharon Tate's father, Paul Tate, dressed as a hippie, infiltrating the anti-draft movement, the anti-war movement, anti-conscription movement. We had Hunter S. Thompson, the fake journalist, writing CIA agreed upon narratives. We had Janis Joplin and Jerry Garcia, and we had Grace Slick, and all of these Warner Brothers and Columbia Records contract artists singing other people's music. I don't think Neil Young wrote his songs. I don't think the Jefferson Airplane wrote their songs. I definitely don't think the Beatles wrote their songs. I don't think Carol Klein King wrote her songs, okay? They have song teams and professional people with professional instruments who are classically trained, who will play the music that you hear on the radio, which is a military complex. The radio, the network, it's military complex. The internet, military complex. Everything that runs on a military platform, including this video, has a purpose, okay? My purpose clearly is to get all of the disobedient people who don't agree with the anthropology narratives, and they want to identify you and have you come to my channel. That's the only reason I exist. You can see how much poppycock there is on all the platforms I'm on. I mean, it's disgraceful. There are very few channels. I mean, there are very few channels that I would have any confidence in. 99% of the content out there. Anybody who promotes Robert Kennedy Jr., anybody who promotes Joe Rogan or Howard Stern or promotes Ron DeSantis or Gavin Newsom or Arnold Schwarzenegger, anybody who promotes them and promotes voting and promotes that we have a Congress, or Donald Trump, or that Donald Trump's going to save us, or that we should vote for Donald Trump. I mean, I immediately delete them from my universe because they're frauds. They're working for the CIA. They're working for the CIA. That's what the CIA wants. They want you to believe in Trump, or they want you to believe in Joe Biden, or the cackling cacophony of chaos, Kamala Harris. They want you to, because you bought in. You got punked. You're MK Ultra. Don't you realize Kamala Harris has no authority? Donald Trump has no authority. Joe Biden has no authority. And if they did, God help you, because they got a gun to their heads. They're not going to do anything that's going to save the planet. Okay, they're not going to stop the chemtrail dumpings. No, they're not. Because they're not in charge. They're fake. There are no Supreme Court judges. There is no Supreme Court. There is no Constitution. So just forget about that. The best you can do is try to get your neighborhood to be as independent as possible. Find safe water, find safe food, create local farming relationships. Go from farm to table. Keep the corporations out of it. You cannot trust the College of Corporations. They're part of a cabal which is run by the banks, because the banks pay everybody. The judges don't get paid unless the bank pays them. The government has no money. All the counties run deficits. You can't have these Supreme Court judges and these Superior Court judges, who, by the way, they're paint-by-number system. They're under maritime law. They don't make any real decisions. They're following a script. It's a very simple job. It's a very simple job. It's a boring, tedious job. I'll give you that, which is why I know they hate it, and that's why they don't work on Friday afternoons. Superior Court judges want to go home at 11:30 a.m. They're gone. There's nothing happens in a courthouse on a Friday afternoon anywhere under maritime law. All right. And they don't work weekends. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I wish it was a happier subject, but I'm calling it Predictive Behavior through Bank Anthropology, which funds all these programs from microbiology to nanotechnology to Hollywood, social engineered music, television, radio, and Masonic messaging. 13, 33, 666, 999, scapegoats, getting you to run in circles, helter skelter, chaos, mixed messaging, false narratives, all to keep your mind away from NATO forces, because it was NATO military troops who killed Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger and Pascalino LaBianca, 6 feet tall, 235 pounds, military policeman. You think some hippie's going to waltz in there with a buck knife and take out a guy with 6 loaded weapons in his mother's home whilst he's waiting to move to San Diego to a horse farm? You think that some 21-year-old little girl is going to take out Lino LaBianca? You're out of your mind. You need a team of soldiers with bayonets and chloroform or stun guns and chloroform, because he didn't resist. He did not resist. So they must have pacified him before he was bayoneted. Got it? Glad you did. Thank you for coming. Please like and subscribe to my videos. Please share them. Have a great day.